Welcome to the 76 Capital Leadership Series. I'm your host, Wayne Kimmel, and also managing partner of 76 Capital. Really excited to have you here tonight on our show. As usual, we have our great producer and chief of staff at 76 Capital, James Santor, who is running all controls back at the office. James can be found at James Santor on Instagram and on Facebook, and as well as on Twitter, as you see on the screen if you're watching the show right now. So really excited to have a really special guest today. We have the CEO of the Positive Coaching Alliance. His name is Chris Moore. Excited to have him on. You'll see that you can also follow Chris at Chris Moore Sport on Twitter. We're really excited to hear all the things that he does in the industry of sports, and we'll get into that in a minute. As many of you know, our 76 Capital Leadership Series, which can be found on our podcast as well as on the internet. Please subscribe to our social channels, whether that's at 76 Capital or at Wayne Kimmel, to learn about all the things that we do at 76 Capital, but also with our leadership series where we interview executives, entrepreneurs, and athletes in the sports industry who are truly doing the next thing. And that's what it's all about. We want to talk to innovators and entrepreneurs and executives who are really pushing the limits, who are doing things to really truly make this world a better place. And that's what we're all about at 76 Capital. As you know, we want to work with people who are passionate, who are smart, who are nice, who want to change the world and do really big things. So you can learn about all the things that we do on our 76 Capital video series, as well as on our podcasts. You can subscribe on Anchor, through Spotify, on Apple as well. And it's always a great conversation, and today is no different. So today, I'm really excited to bring on our guest. His name is Chris Moore. He's the CEO of the Positive Coaching Alliance. As I said, you can follow the Positive Coaching Alliance at Positive Coach US on Twitter. Chris is the former CEO of the U.S. Youth Soccer Organization, the largest youth soccer organization in the country. He was the former president and chief operating officer of Gen Youth. He was also, while he was at Gen Youth, he created this partnership with former First Lady Michelle Obama and the NFL. Really amazing things that he did there. Looking forward to talking to him about that. He serves as a champion on the Aspen Institute Project Play 2020, which is a collaborative effort by leading sports, health, media, and other organizations to increase national sports participation rates and related metrics among youth. That's something that's critical today. He advises the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services in their effort to change the culture of youth sports by creating a national youth sports strategy. He's a Lake Forest College graduate and got an MBA from the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. So I'm really excited to welcome onto our show Chris Moore, the CEO of Positive Coaching Alliance. Chris, welcome to our 76 Capital Leadership Series.
Wayne, I am thrilled to be here with you. Thanks for having me.
I really look forward to our conversation. I love all the things that you've done in your background, the things that you do to really, truly make this world a better place for everyone, for young people. It's awesome what you get to do. So one of the things that we do, Chris, on our 76 Capital Leadership Series, when we kick it off, is really want to hear about the backstory. We want to learn about you, want to learn about, where you grew up, what kind of made you who you are today, and then we'll get into it. So Chris, I'd love to hear your story.
I was once asked, I think it was during an interview, I was interviewing for a job maybe 15 years ago. And the person interviewing me asked, "So, turn your baseball card to the back and tell me what's on the back of your baseball card." So that's how I interpret your question. Let me just kind of reflect on what's on the back of my baseball card. So I grew up in Chicago. Although I live in Dallas now, I do not follow Dallas sports teams. I am a Chicago, Cubs fan, White Sox, Bears, Blackhawks fan through and through. But I grew up, the reason sports is just so integral to who I am and really in my DNA is because I grew up playing multiple sports. Sports has been a passion of mine, particularly baseball. There's a picture of my dad and me on Father's Day in Chicago last year. And, I was raised by a single mom and my sister. My parents divorced at an early age. But, and we have a great relationship now. But I'm a proud father of two boys who both grew up playing sports. My oldest son, Nico, is 16. My youngest son, Noah, is 14. Again, both of them have played multiple sports, both at the rec level, but also they played club sports, swam, football, flag football, and they played through their YMCA, through our local community organizations, as well as I mentioned, club sports. So sports has just been a part of who I am. It's been a part of my upbringing, and then and it's just so amazing that I get to do sports, at an executive level now. My career started out, this is like probably the highlight of my back of my baseball card, but I worked, when I graduated college, undergraduate, I worked for Oprah Winfrey. It was my first entry-level position, worked on the production team there at the Oprah Winfrey Show. Did that for 2 or 3 years. And then it was there that I sort of determined that, I really want to pursue a career in, not in television per se, but in marketing and communications and public relations. And so I started, I left there and started really, paving the way for the career that I now enjoy, primarily working in the marketing space. I worked for a number of consumer packaged goods companies in marketing. They were all global organizations, which allowed me to travel overseas as a product manager or brand manager, doing not only marketing, but also business development and sales, and just traveling around the world, helping to drive awareness and drive sales for those organizations. And I managed just a lot of really terrific consumer and household products that we enjoy. And it was, so after about, I would say, 15 or 20 years building, my career in marketing and business development, that I started working for, not at the brand level, but more at the category level, for an organization called Dairy Management. Dairy Management is the parent organization for the American Dairy Association, U.S. Dairy Export Council, and the National Dairy Council. And in roles of increasing responsibility, primarily marketing and business development, I, again, traveled all over the world, but growing sales and increasing demand for U.S. produced dairy products. And I did that for 15 years. I was an executive vice president when I left. But it was at that moment that after kind of working, in the private sector and the for-profit sector primarily, that I reached this sort of crescendo where I had a talk with our chief executive officer, who's a friend and a mentor now. And I said to him, I really want to do two things. I want to do something that's more purpose-driven, and I want to do something that, and I want to go back to school really and learn sort of more of the fundamentals and frameworks that I can apply to the work that I do, and to make me more successful and make our organization more successful. And so what Tom said to me is, look, we are starting this other organization. It's a nonprofit called the Gen Youth Foundation. And it's a collaboration with the National Football League. And we would love for you to work, sort of parlay all of the for-profit experience that you've had, all of the relationship management and partnership experiences that you've you've amassed and apply them to this this situation. And while at the same time, I applied to a couple business schools because I wanted to get my MBA and really be a more valuable contributor to the organization. So I did both. I was the chief operating officer and president of Gen Youth, while at the same time going to business school on weekends. And for 2 years, it was pretty rigorous and tough because I was still traveling overseas quite a bit as well. But Gen Youth was just an amazing organization. It still is. I helped to start it up, working with our CEO, Alexis Glick, who is still the CEO and doing a phenomenal job.
We did some amazing things. I mean, at Gen Youth, and it's really incredible. You know, and I want to ask you that question and just jump in for a second and just, you know, again, we're here with Chris Moore. He's the CEO of the Positive Coaching Alliance. He's sharing his backstory of all the things that he's done in his career leading up to where he is today on our 76 Capital Leadership Series. Chris, you know, you were getting into what you were talking about from a Gen Youth perspective and this partnership that Gen Youth had with the NFL. And I know you know, I understand also you worked with Michelle Obama and the White House back during those times as well with Gen Youth.
Absolutely. So Gen Youth, the mission was very simple. It was to create healthier communities, healthier schools, healthier kids. And we did that in a multitude of different ways. But our flagship program was Fuel Up to Play 60, a collaboration between the National Football League, Gen Youth, you know, the Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Education, and the Department of Agriculture, the USDA. We came together in a five-way MOU to commit to solving the child obesity crisis and creating these healthier kids in schools. And so Fuel Up to Play 60 is the largest in-school health and wellness program in the country. We worked really closely with the NFL and NFL Players Association and the NFL clubs to promote not only the importance of physical activity for 60 minutes a day, preferably through football and through sport, but also the importance of consuming nutrient-rich foods like low-fat, non-fat dairy products, whole grains, fresh fruits and vegetables. And so that collaboration allowed us to scale the program into, you know, 78,000 schools across the country, and really empowering youth to take an active part in their own health and wellness. And so, to your point, we had the opportunity, the amazing opportunity, to partner with the former First Lady Michelle Obama, who had a program called Let's Move and Let's Move Active Schools. So we partnered together. We sat on various task forces at the White House, again, all aimed at creating a healthier school environment by tackling this really tough impediment called childhood obesity. And then it later spawned into you know, being active and you know, creating active school communities, food insecurity, solving for that issue. And Gen Youth continues to do amazing work. It was sort of the accumulation of those recent experiences that then opened up a door for me to be offered the position of Chief Executive Officer at US Youth Soccer. As you noted, the largest youth sport organization in the country. I served as the CEO there for 5 years, did some amazing things, partnered with not only our membership, comprised of 55 member state associations across the country, but also partners, commercial partners, and the public sector as well, to increase awareness of sport and to drive participation in youth soccer across the country. And so that was a terrific experience. And I had become familiar with Positive Coaching Alliance through our partnership when I was at US Youth Soccer. And so our long-term founder, Jim Thompson, he founded PCA 22 plus years ago. It was announced that he was retiring. And so I had learned by attending, coincidentally enough, a PCA event, our National Youth Sports Awards and benefit, that Jim was retiring. And so I had a conversation with one of their board members who encouraged me to apply. I went through the process and was selected to lead PCA into the future as their CEO. So I'm really thrilled to be here. PCA is an amazing organization. I just celebrated my 1-year anniversary a couple of weeks ago.
Well, congratulations on that. And it's amazing, and what we just learned, sort of breaking news, I guess, for us on the 76 Capital Leadership Series is our producer, James, his dad led the search for Positive Coaching Alliance. We didn't even know that when we set this all up. We originally set this up directly with Michelle Musburger, another one of your Chicago connections there.
Yeah, that's right.
Now living in Vegas, but I mean it's just such a small world, and it's so incredible. Congratulations on the 1 year now being at Positive Coaching Alliance, and it's amazing to see the types of individuals that are donating their time, their efforts, their energy with your organization. I'd love to hear, of course, I want you to kind of go through what Positive Coaching Alliance is all about, but I'd also love to hear from your perspective what it really means for you to lead such a positive and amazing organization.
That's a really good question. So as I mentioned earlier, sports has just been so integral to my upbringing, not just for the obvious reasons of participation, right? Of being active and having fun. And, my sister and I were latchkey kids. And so we depended heavily on community organizations like the YMCA and Parks and Rec. My mother, who was working quite a lot to put food on the table for us, she relied heavily on these programs, and so I've just always felt the need to be part of sport in some way. I never imagined I'd be the CEO of two leading organizations in youth sports, but it could involve serving on a board or volunteering. As I mentioned, I coach my kids. My wife is a team mom. We support local community sports organizations, and I would say the larger reason is that sports has the power to transform the lives of young people, right? Sports builds communities. It contributes to the social, emotional, and cognitive well-being of America's youth. And what's really unfortunate, as this year has progressed, is seeing this disruption in youth sports, which has served as a barrier because we have seen, we saw during the last economic recession in 2008, youth sports participation drop from 2008 to 2013. And that is data from the Aspen Institute's Project Play. But we saw participation decline from 45% to 38% in that span of time. And the largest sub-share of that decline really is represented by kids in underserved communities. And so it's really unfortunate just to see what's happening, how the pandemic is playing itself out in terms of participation. And so it's going to really take a collaborative, collective effort for not only Positive Coaching Alliance, but other organizations that we partner with to get more kids active in sports. Not just, again, for the obvious, exercise, play, but for mental health, because a lot of these programs, unfortunately, are not surviving economically and will require investment from both the public and private sectors to stay afloat and to continue to prosper and grow. So we're doing some amazing work at PCA. We are partnering with a number of organizations to not only create access to sport, but to train coaches in some of these critical areas like social and emotional development. Because now more than ever, coaches need to be equipped with the tools and resources and the training necessary to help support their teams, their communities, their players, parents at these during these really difficult times.
There's no doubt. I mean, it's an interesting thing to think about, Chris. I'd love to get your thoughts on the coaching side. I mean, unfortunately, or I guess fortunately, for my kids, they're older now, so they're out of having to listen to me as a coach. And but I think it's interesting because today's a lot of parents who are coaching, or community leaders who are coaching, there's this unbelievable pressure around sports to play year round, to train year round, to practice year round. I was having this conversation with my brother the other day. He's so excited. He has his baseball travel team all ready for next spring, and he can start training in November. And I said to him, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "Why? Let the kids play basketball. Let them go play another sport." He's like, "Oh, they will. We'll work out like a couple hours a week." I said, "Let these kids just." I don't know. I can't believe it. But that's kind of the pressure I hear right now that's going on. Are you seeing that as well?
Yeah, and that's really to be quite honest, not unusual for kids to be placed in results-oriented environments before they're ready. When I was at US Youth Soccer, we of course discouraged that. We encouraged multi-sport participation, and kids need to experience multiple sports, not just to sample various sports, so that they can determine which sport ultimately becomes the sport that they feel most comfortable participating in and as their dominant sport. But also, when kids are placed in environments where they are expected to specialize, it creates other issues like injuries. In various parts of their bodies, because they're using this sort of repetitive, they're getting these repetitive injuries. And it's just from the standpoint of allowing kids to sample various sports and cycle in and out of sports during different times of the year. Like my kids, for example, would play basketball, and then once the basketball season was over, they wanted to try something different, try baseball. And then once the baseball season was over, I think I want to swim. And I think that is contributing to the pressure that kids face. And I must confess, I was one of those parents who expected that since the day he was wearing his first little Cubs onesie at 6 months old, that he would be playing in on a professional sports team or getting a college scholarship. And I found myself doing the same thing, putting pressure on him to participate in baseball throughout. And he finally said to me after, I think he turned 13 or 14, he said, "Dad, I'm done. I'm done with baseball. I want to try football." And I was like, no, I've invested all this money in you. And but then my wife had to tell me, you work in the profession, you know better. And so I now have taken the perspective that let's let them have fun and compete in whichever sport they feel most comfortable in. Because at the end of the day, it's not about winning, and it's not about getting college scholarships, and it's more about developing them as people and building character. And those are really the hallmarks of PCA and what we stand for. It's about creating a positive youth sports culture, allowing kids to sort of believe that they can do anything they want, and putting them in situations where they can build character and participate with their teams and their teammates. And so I think that's unfortunately one of the issues in youth sports is many kids are playing for their parents' dreams and not their own. And we've got to really flip that paradigm.
Well, I would completely agree with you. And again, we're here with Chris Moore, the CEO of Positive Coaching Alliance. I love your tagline: better athletes, better people. But what a tremendous tagline: better athletes, better people. And you have some incredible people that are part of your National Leadership Council, from Dusty Baker to Julie Foudy, from USA Soccer, Steve Kerr, the head coach of the Golden State Warriors, Tommy Amaker, Mike Bray, Shane Battier. I know Val Whiting, who grew up in Delaware, where I grew up, and we actually played high school basketball at the same time. Obviously, she was way better than me. Going off to Stanford in her career. Steve Young and Doc Rivers, I saw now, being in Philly, right? And Doc Rivers, our new head coach for the Sixers now. And you have some amazing, and the list goes on. I mean, so if anyone really should go and check out, go to the Positive Coaching Alliance website to see all the amazing people you have involved. Go to Twitter to Positive Coach US to follow what Chris and his team are doing. It's amazing. And I got to tell you, what you were saying before about how the positivity and being able to, help, young people to, we all have that coach. Did you have that coach when you grew up that you remember, that allowed you to go and just do things that you kind of like giving you that superhuman, extra boost that you could do it? Did you have someone like that in your life?
Well, I must confess, I didn't have the best coaching experiences. When I got to high school, played high school sports, it got better. My coach, the late Coach Rubin, he just passed away, in fact, a year ago, was very inspiring and motivating and uplifting. But prior to that, when I was younger, I didn't have a good experience. And that's, so those names that you just mentioned, those marquee names like Dusty Baker and Phil Jackson and Steve Kerr and others, Julie Foudy, they fundamentally believe in our mission because they came up playing sports, they coach, and our mission is to be a catalyst for a positive youth sports culture in communities all across the country. And a lot of the research that we've done, and if you go to our website, positivecoach.org, and you take our online courses, one of the first things you'll learn as a coach or as a student athlete or as a parent, as an official, or as a leader, an administrator in the sport, is that there are many facets to being an effective coach. And one of the first strategies that we teach coaches through our curriculum is to create a caring culture, a caring climate. We teach them to fill what we call emotional tanks of their players. And then the third is to coach for mastery. So when you think about these three strategies, creating a caring climate, it really involves talking to athletes about their vision for the team that they want to have, asking the player, what would it mean to care for one another? So we teach coaches to instill these principles where players get to express the type of environment they want to participate in, not only from player to coach, but player to player. It involves creating a daily connection with teammates. Asking the player, how can you support your teammates, and how can your teammates support you, and things like that. And then the second one I mentioned is filling emotional tanks, and we use this all the time throughout the PCA culture. And this is probably one of the most powerful tools that coaches walk away from our training, learning about, it's about filling emotional tanks. So in our view, it's difficult for a coach to create a caring climate unless they understand and can commit to filling an emotional tank of their athlete. So let me explain that concept. So we all have emotional tanks, metaphorically speaking, that works like the gas tank of a car. So your emotional tank fuels your performance. And this is what we teach. Athletes with empty e-tanks, they can't go very far, just like a car can't go very far on empty. Athletes with empty e-tanks are pessimistic, they give up more easily, and they tend to be less coachable. By contrast, though, athletes with full emotional tanks, they tend to be optimistic. They deal with adversity quite well. They have a positive attitude, and they're very much coachable. So coaches, throughout all of our training, and this is research and evidence-based, but they are always either filling or draining emotional tanks by the way that they interact with their players. So a coach who is considered a tank drainer is probably overly critical of their players. They shame their players when a player makes a mistake, for example. They use sarcasm. They frown upon them. Those are tank drainers. But those tank filling coaches always provide positive, constructive, and instructive feedback. Again, a full emotional tank is better than a drained tank, and we teach coaches quite a lot about that. And then the third strategy that we teach is really coaching for mastery, which really involves not focusing on the scoreboard. It's not about wins and losses at the end of the day. It's not about what the scoreboard says, but it's about what you learned. Did you grow? And we talk a lot about growth mindset, and so our trainers, we have hundreds of trainers that we use who teach these courses, and they've been widely accepted throughout youth sports.
Yeah, it's a great way to work with coaches that then of course feeds down to the players, the kids, and it's so important. And I knew it was really great. I got to watch Ken Cash, the manager of the Tampa Bay Rays, the AL champions of baseball this year, and I love the video that he had that you shared on your website about, again, positivity, this really getting behind your players and emotionally helping them, to be successful.
Yeah, you often think about the importance of a coach when you're at the youth level. Like if you think about some of the U.S. women's national team players in soccer, when women won the World Cup in Paris last year, and they go to the microphone and they talk about what's inspired them. They often talk about their coach. Even some of the alumni players like Mia Hamm and Judy Foudy, they talk about how inspiring their coach was. Anton Dorrance was Mia's coach in college, and you can't watch an interview without listening to Mia give credit to her coaches, and it's something that always sticks with you. I've shared this story before. I'll mention it very briefly. My first real experience as a parent watching my son coach. As he was coached in Little League, he's playing club baseball actually. My son was playing. He was out of position, I thought, because he never really trained as a catcher. But the coach decided to put him at catcher because he had a pretty strong arm. He normally played first base, and that's the job of a coach, right? To move players around and get them different looks, different experiences. Well, one game in particular that stands out is a game that was tied, bottom of the ninth. Well, actually, it's the bottom of the sixth inning because we only played 6 innings at that time. The opposing team, at bat in the last half of the inning, I think the pitcher walked the first batter. The second batter comes to the plate, hits a screaming line drive to the right, right field. The right fielder picks up the ball, fires it into home plate as the runner is rounding third base, and my son is set up to catch the ball for a play at the plate. He, as the runner slid into home plate, my son tried to apply the tag without first catching the ball, and he didn't catch the ball. The winning run scored, game over. The coach runs out of the dugout, yells at my son, "Nico, you cost us the game." And I, as a parent, was just livid. And my son is, he takes off his mask and he's just bawling because the coach isolated him and made him feel like, he cost the team the game. And of course he didn't catch the ball, but that's the antithesis of what we teach at Positive Coaching Alliance.
Well, tell your son not to feel so badly. That's how the Rays won one of the games of the World Series this year. So it happens at the highest of levels.
Yes.
I mean, it's and you know what? It's crazy you say that because I mentioned my brother earlier. We were actually talking about that play and how hard times on some of the kids on his team. And I said, look what happened there. I mean, they lost a World Series game on a quote unquote easy play. So these are things that, happen at all levels. What you're doing at the Positive Coaching Alliance and trying to really help coaches do the right thing when they're out there with these young people who are such an opportunity to positively influence them. As we all, many of us wanted to be professional players in whatever sport it was. And the chances of that are so slim. But the chances of us to actually love sports, being able to pass that down to the next generation, to be great fans, those are things that you can really knock out of somebody if you do the wrong thing as a coach. And I'll share this with you, Chris. A lot of the moms in the Philly area where I live, they call me Coach Wayne. I'm not even sure our producer James knows that's my nickname, but that's a lot of the moms call me that because I just loved coaching. I loved working with my kids and their friends in leagues, and just always try to have a really good time. Make sure the kids got a chance to really get to know each other, get to know each other's names, where they're from, what they're all about, what they like, what they dislike. I mean, there's so much that you can do. And again, we're not there to make these kids into major leaguers or NBA players, or that's a whole nother level. And I think it's all about enjoying the game. So I'd love to ask, one of the last things I'd love to talk about on our 76 Capital Leadership Series is for you as a leader and as the CEO of the Positive Coaching Alliance. What are some of the things that are important for you to bring together your organization, and what are some of the things that you look for to and try to really make sure that everyone does the right thing on your team?
Well, first of all, at Positive Coaching Alliance, we talk a lot about filling of emotional tanks. And so that's not just a principle that we impart on the coaches and athletes and parents, frankly, but also we practice it internally. So my job as a leader is to create an environment where the team can win and to be a tank filler, not a tank drainer, put people in a position to succeed, really be a servant leader and really helping my team, our team, be successful in whatever areas that might mean. So you think about, I've taken many courses on leadership, and there is no definition, no universal definition. One of my favorite professors in business school, who's written In fact, she recently wrote a book called Choosing Leadership. In it, she talks about the difference between so a leader it sort of runs the organization with a compass. So you may not know exactly the roads you're going to turn down, but you know generally what direction you want to take the organization. Whereas a manager navigates an organization using a map, going from A to B to C. And so which you need, but organizations need both, right? They need leaders and managers because, at certain levels, leaders may not exactly know how to get certain things done. But directionally, they know where they want to take the organization, where the organization needs to go in order to successfully fulfill its mission, drive impact. But managers can tell you how to navigate how to get there. So I think it's important to try to balance the needs of both, which is why my personal leadership style is to create an entrepreneurial culture, encourage risk taking, just like in a team environment. It's okay to make mistakes. Sometimes mistakes are just part of a game. Mistakes are part of your work. You learn from them. They sort of become teachable moments, and you move on. And just like we often use, and we teach this in our training around mistake rituals that coaches need to impart. Some coaches, when a catcher flubs the ball like my son did, a coach may say, "Hey, shake it off," or flush it, or some kind of gesture phrase that allows players to move on to the next play, because that's the most important play, is the next one, not the one where you just made a mistake. And
I heard Tommy Amaker doing a video on your website about that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so that's a hallmark of our training. And I think it very much applies to leadership as well. I would much rather have someone on our team take the risk, take the shot, and come up short than not to have done so at all. As long as you learn from it and can grow. And so I just think it's important. Leaders today have to put their teams in positions to win, and they have to be an active player on the team and not just hand off everything to the team. The team has to be included, and that's really what sort of characterizes my leadership style, is just putting our team in a position to succeed. And it's really the mission of PCA, which is being a catalyst for positive youth sports culture. It certainly applies to my own leadership style.
So I do actually have one more thing I really would love to ask you is,
Sure.
During these times, we're living through some really tough times. We've social unrest. We have a global pandemic going on right now. It's tough. It's tough for organizations. It's tough for families. It's tough for just a lot of people out there right now. Do you think that coaches have an additional responsibility, or can they actually do something to help make this world a better place right now for young people and for just all of us in general?
Well, it has been a really tough time, and it's probably going to get tougher, I hate to say, with this second wave of COVID. That was the initial crisis, and then secondly was the economic fallout from COVID, which will, I think, really do additional havoc on youth sports. So to answer your question, yeah, I think it's going to be more important than ever for coaches to continue to communicate with their players and teams, especially as we see these fits and starts. Not at the risk of not getting into politics at all, there are many states that opened up early. Sports programs opened up early. They then had to shut down because players on the teams became infected with the virus. Parents got the virus. And so, unfortunately, what's happened and what's continuing to happen throughout youth sports is that there are parts of the country that are where youth programs are up and running, and then there are parts of the country where they're not because of the community spread of COVID. And so what coaches have been able to do, some very resourceful coaches, is to create environments online where they could do assessments and drills and training of their players. And PCA, we've created a whole platform called Life is a Team Sport that has a lot of tools and resources for coaches to utilize with their teams and with their players if their specific state or their city or their locale happens to be shut down or interrupted. And so coaches have really found resourceful ways to communicate with their players and for players to communicate with one another during this pandemic. And it's going to be really difficult over the next few months as we get a vaccine. But I think with digital tools and resources, virtual use of technology, we can collectively, and positively impact change within the industry and keep youth sports top of mind, even if community park and rec organization or school sports, as it were, shuts down, or any other national sports governing body or league. And PCA has partnerships with a number of organizations, and we're utilizing technology now more than ever to deploy as a resource for coaches and for parents to do at home if for some reason their player cannot actively participate on a team.
Well, that's great to hear, and it's really been great to have you first on the show. I mean, you certainly filled my emotional tank. I love your positivity. I love what you're doing for coaches, for athletes, for all these kids that are out there today. You're doing great work, and keep it up. Again, Chris Moore, CEO of Positive Coaching Alliance, thank you so much for joining us on our 76 Capital Leadership podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thanks, Chris. And as you all know, please follow us on social media at 76 Capital, as well as Chris and his organization at Positive Coach US, and Chris himself at Chris Moore Sport. This has really been a great conversation about youth coaching and youth sports and just all the things that we can all do to truly make this world a better place and allow kids to have a better life. And that's what it's all about. So it's about really passing it on to the next generation, and that's what we got to do. So you can listen to all of our 76 Capital Leadership podcasts, including this one, at Spotify, at Anchor, as well as on Apple Podcasts as well. Thanks to my producer, James Santor, back at the station. I'm Wayne Kimmel, our host. And again, thanks again, Chris Moore from the Positive Coaching Alliance, for being on our show today.